Semitic Magic, Its Origins and Development by R. Campbell Thompson. Continuing chapter 3 here. I think we're on D. Jaffer, Shurif, and Herklotz. Islam 258. Fraser, The Golden Bough 348. Quotes many instances which throw light on the Assyrian incantation. The Al-Furs of Minahassa in Chelebes will sometimes transport a sick man to another house where they leave on his bed a dummy made of a pillow and clothes. The demon is supposed to mistake for the sick man, who subsequently recovers. Grafland. In certain of the western districts of Borneo, if a man is suddenly taken and violently sick, the physician, who in this part of the world is generally an old woman, fashions a wooden image and brings it 7 times into contact with the sufferer's head, while she says, "This image serves to take the place of the sick man. Sickness pass over into the image." Then, with some rice, salt, and tobacco, and a little basket, the substitute is carried to the spot where the evil spirit is supposed to have entered into the man. There is set upright on the ground, after the physician has invoked the spirit, as follows: "O devil, here is an image which stands instead of the sick man. Release the soul of the sick man and the plague the image, for it is indeed prettier and better than he." Kuhur. Similar in the island of Dama, between New Guinea and Celebes, where sickness is described to the agency of demons. The doctor makes a doll out of palm leaf and lays it together with some betel, rice, and half an empty eggshell on a patient's head. Lured by this bait, the demon quits the sufferer's body and enters the palm leaf doll, which the wily doctor thereupon promptly decapitates. Riedel. Well, perhaps it strengthens everybody's alliance to the demons. The demons just want some dew, and that's why they're causing problems, because the humans aren't doing something. Seems to be, Again, in Indian magic, in order to drive out demons from women, the following is part of the procedure. The fairy women, who are an illiterate class of people, any of them do not so much as know the name of God, take 3 different colored silk or cotton thread, even plain or twisted, and form the gunda. That is to say, they form 21 or 22 knots on it. The mullahs are sianas, and making each knot read some incantation over it and blow upon it. When finished, it is fastened to the neck or upper arm of the patient. Then rumbly in the tumbly. Haven't drunk water all day, that's probably why. Qanun et Islam 262. There are curious parallels from the more Western writers. Petronius, writing of certain incantations performed for the purpose of freeing a certain Encolpius from a spell, says, "She then took from her bosom a web of twisted threads of various colors and bound it on my neck." And Perseus speaks of tying threads of many colors on the necks of infants as a charm against fascination. Both of these instances are quoted by Elworthy in his Evil Eye, 58 and 59. The use of the blue ribbon prescribed as necessary in the Hebrew fringes in Numbers 15:38, and the badge of Ethiopian Christianity worn by all classes, which is a blue neck thread, matib, of silk or wool. Basically it showed they weren't Yazidi or Satanist, because the Yazidi tradition, and the proper Yazidi tradition, as you would say not humans are not allowed to wear blue or purple. There are 2 curious charms from late Jewish sources for bleeding at the nose, which include a double thread. The man must take a root of grass, the cord of an old bed, paper, saffron, and the red part of the inside of a palm tree, and burn them together, and take some wool and twist 2 threads, dip them in vinegar, roll them in ashes, and put them into his nose. R. Let him look out for a stream of water which flows from east to west, and let him go and stand with one leg on each side of it, and take with his right hand some mud from under his left foot, and with his left hand from under his right foot. And then he must twist 2 threads of wool, and dip them into the mud, and put them into his nose. Now, this use of part-colored threads in Eastern magic is a distinct reminiscence of the Mesopotamian wizardry, of which several instances are to be found in Assyrian incantations. As an example, we find a development of sympathetic magic in the 6th tablet of the Sherpu series, where directions are given for removing a taboo from a man by binding to his limbs a double cord of black and white threads, which has been twisted into a spindle. He hath turned his steps to a temple woman. Ishtar hath sent her temple woman, hath seated the wise woman on a couch, that she may spin white and black wool into a double cord, a strong cord, a mighty cord, a twee-colored cord on a spindle, a cord to overcome the ban, against the evil course of human ban, against a divine curse, a cord to overcome the ban. He hath bound it on his head. Remember the definition of seher or sitcher as tying a thorn to the head, using the Aramea word. On the hand and foot of the man, Marduk the son of Eredu, the prince, with his undefiled hands cutteth it off, that the ban, its cord, may go forth to the desert to a clean place, that the evil ban may stand aside, and this man may be clean and undefiled. Into the favoring hands of his entity may he be commended. Here again it is evident that the disease is transferred by the power of the magician's spell to the twisted thread which is tied on the patient's limbs and then cut off and thrown away. If a man have a headache, the procedure is exactly similar. The magician is to go out into the desert at sunset and find a certain wild plant, possibly a kind of cucumber, which springs up by itself. After covering his head, he must make a meal circle round it. Then before the sun rises, the plant must be torn up by the roots and tied to the head and neck of the sick man with the hair from a kid, and the headache will go away, never to return, like a straw which the wind whirleth away. And tablet 9, 150 in the series The Headache in the Devil's Book. The power of Marduk to release mankind from all taboos is an idea we have here. Remember the Rafakal part, the Lucifuge Rafakal in the Grand Grimoire, the, flee from the light and tie a cloth around the neck like a sick person. That's what the name means. Another ceremony is prescribed elsewhere for the same complaint. The head of the patient must be bound with a bundle of twigs with magical words, and at eventide this is to be cut off and thrown into the street, that the sickness of his head may be assuaged, and that the headache which hath fallen upon the man like the dew may be removed. By tying knots at the same time, chanting some magic words, a wizard or witch could cast a taboo on the enemy, and it is clear from the Maklu tablet, which ends in one incantation against such malevolent beings with these words: her knot is loosed, her sorcery is brought to naught, and all her charms fill the desert. Stand around. In driving away the headache, the following spell is used by the priest. Take the hair of the virgin kid, let a wise woman spin it on the right side, and double it on the left. Bind twice 7 knots, and perform the incantation of Eredu. Bind therewith the head of the sick man. Bind therewith the neck of the sick man. Bind therewith his life. Bind up his limbs. Go round his couch. Cast the water of the incantation over him, that the headache may ascend to heaven. Like the smoke of a peaceful homestead, and like the lees of water poured out, it may go down into the earth. A further use of the cord in headache cures is found in the same tablet. Unfortunately, the beginning is lost, but at the end directions are given for spinning a threefold cord, much like Ecclesiastes 4:12, and tying twice 7 knots in it. After performing the incantation of Eredu, this is to be tied on the head of the sick man. The headache will then go. Another incantation for the sick runs: Weave thou a 2-colored cord from the hair of a virgin kid and from the wool of a virgin lamb. A young goat is a virgin kid. Upon the limbs of the king, son of his entity, bind it. Then shall the king, the son of his entity, who holdeth the life of the land like the crescent of the moon entity, place it as the glory on his head, like the new crescent of the moon. To change from the more usual the man, the son of his entity, to the king, the son of his entity, is interesting. O'Donovan tells the story of a similar method in use among the modern Persians for removing fever. A woman whose daughter was sick of a fever came to him with a handful of camel's hair that he might make it into a charm for her. He himself, being ignorant of the method by which this should be done, handed it over to a Khan who was with him. By means of a spindle, the camel's hair was spun to a stout thread. The Khan, all the time, donning some verses from the Quran or some necromantic chant. When the thread was finished, it was of considerable length, and, folding it 3 times upon itself, he respun it. Then he proceeded to the 7 knots upon the string. Before drawing each knot, he blew hard upon it. This, tied in the form of a bracelet, was to be worn in the wrist of the patient. Each day, one of the knots was to be untied and blown upon, and when the 7th knot had been undone, the whole of the thread was to be made into a ball and thrown into a river, carrying, as was supposed, the illness with it. And the idea that you can't tell the difference between the scripture and the